Hey guys, this is Jared with Hunt Nashville, and today we're going to be answering some questions and just doing a little catch-up. I'm flying solo. Come on. Hello everybody, this is Jared Woodard, co-host of this hunting, music, whatever podcast called Hunt Nashville. I don't know, it's hunting and music and talk about a little bit of everything. I think it's a multi-genre recording, as it were. Hope you guys have been doing well. I've been doing great. I just got back from vacation with my entire family from not South Florida, like the Gulf Coast in Florida. Going to the beach. We spent a week out there just kind of chilling, eating good seafood, drinking a few beverages, just hanging out, going to the pool with the kids, going to the beach with the kids. It was a really, really good time. And very refreshing and relaxing, and now I'm ready to get back at it. Get back to work and get back to recording some of these podcasts. We have a lot of fun doing them. Today, really just kind of talking about a few things, some updates on some stuff, I guess, and some news stories that I've found interesting lately. And then I've also got a handful of questions that I've got from YouTube and Instagram that we didn't catch on our unqualified hunting advice podcast we did maybe a month or two ago. That I thought were good questions, especially with the pending deer season coming up within the next few months. So, really not a whole lot to talk about as much as updates are concerned. I've been traveling a little bit for vacation and stuff. Kevin's been traveling a bunch. We're finally starting to get back in town and starting to get some interviews scheduled for the podcast, and just catching up, just trying to keep up with life, with family and kids, and start prepping for deer and dove season. I did not get the dove field planted this year. We do a dove hunt annually, first week of every September after dove season opens, and I did not get the field planted this year. So I'm having to resort to just going out there and mowing and hunting and hoping something happens. Who knows? We've had some great hunts out there, literally just mowing. It's on about a 350-acre farm out in West Tennessee, and they usually do soybeans or corn or cotton. Generally rotate between soybeans and cotton. So get a decent amount of doves out there, just local birds that kind of hang out all year. And then we're kind of close to a main flyaway over in West Tennessee, close to the Mississippi River. So we get a good amount of birds out there generally. So we'll find out how it is this year. We've still got a few months before it happens, but we're hoping that the birds will pull through and actually give us a chance to get in front of them. Last year the hunt was lackluster. But every year previous to that, we usually had pretty good shoots. I think last year we just got some odd weather. We got a storm a couple days before the hunt that pushed a lot of the birds south, and the next group had not had a chance to come in and find the field. So we'll see how that goes, and then just trying to get ready for deer season, shooting the bow a little bit. I'm real bad about not shooting until right before season starts. I know a lot of people are hardcore about shooting all year, and I agree with that. And I understand it for sure, but, with time and everything else going on and with family, I don't get much time to shoot. So generally, I don't start shooting until July or so, and then I'll shoot for, a good couple of months before deer season starts to get back into the swing of things. That is probably not the best practice, I know, but it is what it is at this point, unfortunately. All right, let's get into some of these questions. First one I saw that I thought that was interesting. It's from YouTube, and it says, how much deer meat do you keep / what do you keep? And do you donate any deer meat? I ideally kill about 3 whitetails a year. We have another question dealing with what exactly those whitetails are, but if I kill 3 deer a year, that's enough to fill the freezer to get enough meat to last me and my family through the entire year. We don't eat venison every meal. Right after Well, during and right after deer season, right after I kill the first deer of the year, we eat venison a ton. It tends to slack off as the year goes on. I wouldn't necessarily say that we get bored of it, but we try to add a little more variety into our food consumption at home and our cooking. My wife does 99% of the cooking, and she she likes to cook a lot of different stuff. So we try to get better about eating more venison, but 2 or 3 deer will make it through the year for us. I've donated a few years when I was younger and was able to hunt more. I donated some to Hunters for the Hungry here in town. Here in Tennessee, or I guess in Middle Tennessee at least, there's Hunters for the Hungry program, which you take your deer up to a processor that's involved with the program. They process it and they donate the meat to meat lockers locally. As far as like my main donating, I'll give it to family members if they want some. I process all of my own deer, so I field dress them like most people. I skin them, I quarter them, I debone them, and then I cut everything up and package it in a vacuum sealer, and then I freeze it all. So we keep. I have my hands on a deer that I kill from the moment I put my hands on it to the moment it goes in my freezer. It never really leaves my sight. I have absolutely no problem with processors. There are a lot of great wild game processors here in Middle Tennessee and in Nashville, and I used them for years. I just found that when I did it myself, there was a different connection to the meat that I didn't have otherwise. I don't really know a better way to explain it, honestly. There was a connection to the food that me and my family had that we didn't really get, or at least I didn't really get when I sent it through a processor. So processor's certainly easier, and the ones that we take it to here in town do a great job. But I don't know, doing it myself, it takes me about 3 or 4 hours total from the time I get it home to the time I put the last package in the freezer. It just takes some time. Grinding burger takes a lot of time. We have a relatively small grinder, and just cutting it all up, getting all the sinew and all the connected tissue off of it, deboning it, getting it ready to cook before you put it in the freezer. That way you don't have to do a lot of work after you thaw it. I found really nice and really rewarding. Not everybody's going to do that, and that I completely understand. But for me, it just has it's kind of added a whole new side of things that I never experienced before. I spent 10 years or so, 15 years or so hunting and never really got to experience that side of things. And now that I have, I don't know if I'll go back unless I just get to the point where I physically can't do it or can't find the time. But for right now, I can make the time staying up late on a Saturday night, trying to get the thing cut up and in the freezer and get ready to cook. And that question leads into another than we've got on YouTube, which is, what's your favorite venison cut and preparation? My favorite venison meal is roast. My wife makes an amazing venison roast. Off the bone, any of the roasts that you get off the rear hams are really, really good. A ball roast is really good, but those big, thick ones that are almost like, I don't know, they almost are horseshoe in shaped where they're attached to the bone. Those are excellent. You get all the sinew off of them, all the white and silver thin skin. Make sure you get all of that off of them, and then get them. She does them in a Dutch oven in the oven. She browns it and then puts it in the oven, and then she does carrots and onions and potatoes and rosemary and cooks it for several hours and cooks it way down. Venison, because it's so lean and doesn't have a lot of fat, she adds some oil in the pan and some broth, but you also have to cook it a little bit longer because it doesn't have a whole lot of fat in it. It takes a little bit longer to break down and really get tender, fall off the bone tender, but once you do, it is amazing. So that's my favorite cut of meat, is any of the roasts you get off the back ham or the front shoulder. I've not done a neck roast yet, but I've heard it's delicious if you cook it right. I just have to try it. As far as the meat we keep off the deer, every bit of meat that's usable we use. If you've ever processed a deer yourself, you'll know that there's just a certain amount of meat on a deer you can't really get to. Some people keep the ribs. I don't keep the ribs just because there's not a ton of meat on them. I try to keep as much of the neck meat as possible and use it for burger, or some of the stuff that's closer down to the shoulders I use for jerky. The meat off the front shoulders I use for jerky and burger, and then just about everything off the back hams that is not just kind of cutaway meat I use for steaks and roasts, mostly roasts. I don't cut up a lot of steaks. What I'll do is I'll freeze the whole muscle group, and then when I take it out, I'll cut steaks then. That's a trick I learned from Steve Ranella. Which it makes complete sense, I just had never thought of it before. He freezes the whole thing, that way when you're freezing it, that you have as little surface area as possible to get, freezer burn or to get ruined. And then when you pull it out, cut them then, get them partially thawed, they're easier to cut. And then you can cut them to the exact thickness you want. You don't have to mess with a big squishy piece of meat trying to slide all over the cutting board on you. So yeah, that's the meat we use. I'm going to keep a heart and a liver out of the next deer I kill. That's one thing I want to try. But as far as any of the internal organs, I generally don't keep them. Just because I haven't in the past. I haven't gotten adventurous enough, but I really want to try a nice grilled deer heart. We'll see how good it is. And then, just try to save everything you possibly can. You've taken an animal's life. The very least that you can do is try to use as much of it as possible. Some people get grossed out by some of it, and that's okay. I understand, but try to use as much of the meat as you can. We try to clean our bones off pretty good. That way, even if it goes in the burger bowl, we can make a little bit of burger out of it and have some burgers or spaghetti or meatloaf or something like that. All right, let's see. We got 2 more questions. The next one is from Instagram, and I honestly will give a very short answer to this one, which is, do deer care about the smell of human urine as opposed to deer urine? I will say I have no clue. I have been told for years that they will run away if they smell urine near your deer stand, and I have been told recently by quite a few people that they really don't care. One thing I do know is every deer is an individual. We think of them as a game species and as a species in general, but every deer is an individual, just like a human. Wow, that sounds really like animal rightsy, but I mean that to say every deer will respond to different things in a different way. So some deer will respond to a buck grunt. Some bucks will come right in. Some bucks will run away. It just depends on what that deer has been through as far as fights and the kind of herd dynamic it's in, the food availability, water availability, all of that kind of stuff. So I err on the side of caution when it comes to peeing near my stand or in mock scrapes. You do what you want. I haven't had a bad experience doing it yet, but I also don't do it often unless it's just absolutely necessary. I'd rather just err on the side of caution, and it doesn't really hurt me at all to hold my pee or pee in a bottle out of a deer stand, honestly. So that's the best answer I can give for that one. Sorry, I'm certainly not a whitetail biologist. Here's one from YouTube. It says, what do you do for scent control? I try to keep it as simple as possible. I wash my clothes in a scent-free detergent probably 2 or 3 times every season. I keep them in a Rubbermaid tub that stays locked. All of my cloth gear stays in that tub all deer season, which is good. It keeps it all organized. It's all in one place. And 2, keeps it kind of locked up and away from scent. And then I also spray down with scent control sprays when I get to the field. Some people don't believe in them. I think they work. I've forgotten many times and gotten busted, and remembered many times and had deer walk up under me. So it may just be, there may not be much science behind it, but I certainly believe that they work. So I use them still. And our last question is, do you shoot does or do you shoot young bucks? This one's gonna be tricky. I absolutely shoot does. It's legal in Tennessee. We actually, in our unit in Tennessee, you can shoot 3 does a day every day of deer season. Legally, and so at least as of when we're recording this podcast. So I shoot does for sure. Usually I won't hold out for a buck unless I've killed several deer that season. The answer on the young bucks is 50-50. I shoot young bucks if it's early in the season and I haven't killed more than a deer or 2, or and that also has to coincide, that also has to coincide with the landowner doesn't have a problem with it. Some places we hunt, they want you to shoot anything 3 years or older, or 8 points or bigger, or whatever the thing is. And I abide by those rules. If that's what the landowner wants, then that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to go against their will. But if I have only killed like one doe, or certainly killed no deer, and the landowner's okay with it, I'll shoot a spike in a heartbeat. Some people frown about that, and they frown on that, and that's okay. I think that there's been a lot of horn shaming when it comes to deer hunting over the last 10 years or so. People have become afraid to post a picture with a 4-point on Instagram or Facebook because they're afraid of what people might say about them. I think that's ridiculous. I think if that deer is something that you're proud of, it was legal and it was ethical as far as the landowner didn't have a problem with you shooting that, I think that's awesome. That is a trophy. I am super proud of a doe when I shoot it with a bow or rifle, doesn't matter how. And I think there's been a lot of shaming amongst the hunting group. We have enough people against us when it comes to people, animal rights activists and anti-hunters in general. There doesn't need to be a lot of arguing within the ranks. We need to support each other and try and get along. And even if we don't always feel the same way about certain topics, we need to try to understand that to each his own. And it's not necessarily unethical to shoot a 4-point as opposed to a 160-inch 4.5-year-old. But that's me personally. Everybody's different. Kevin, just for a perfect example, he doesn't really like to shoot young bucks. He'll shoot a younger buck on public land generally, and I might be speaking for him here, but he shoots older bucks, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just have a different mentality about it, and we both get along great. So that's all for the questions today. Sorry this podcast is a little short. We're going to try to get back into the weekly run of things. We've got some interviews scheduled to do, and sitting down with some people, still working on some of that. But in the meantime, it might be just some with me and Kevin kind of talking about hunting topics and music topics and whatever topics. We really like just sitting down and chewing the cud and running our mouths about stuff that we know a little bit about. We're certainly not experts on any of it, but we know a little bit about all of it. So in the meantime, y'all stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just search Hunt Nashville or Double Trouble Hunting. You'll find us. And until next time, come on, buddy.